Talking baseball, baseball and the O's.
Welcome back, Birdland, to another episode of the Talkin Orioles Baseball Podcast. I am, of course, your host, Benny Becker, thrilled as always, gang, to be sitting down here in Camden County Studios talking Orioles baseball with all of you in Birdland. Fantastic episode we have on our hands, gang. Episode 58, Yo-Yo-O's. Because this team is a bit of a yo-yo to start this season, gang. We're going to have a lot of good topics, including recapping the last three series. Ward, Gunnar, Cowser, Himamaya Jackson, an injury report that includes the manager, Craig Albernez, and a whole lot more, gang. So stick with us as we have just a great, exciting episode on our hands. Before we get into that, though, I want to let you know why we're recapping the last three Orioles series and why you haven't heard us on the air in about a week. It's because here in Camden County Studios, we actually experienced some significant technical difficulties last week and into this week. Took us a little time to process and get up the steam, but we got it all sorted out, gang. We got it all figured out, and we are back on your airwaves talking Orioles baseball. Right where we need to be, right where we want to be, right where we gotta be. Gang, it is an exciting time, still very early into this baseball season. Make sure you're checking us out on Instagram and TikTok at Talkin Orioles Baseball. On our YouTube page where our full episodes lie, including this episode, again at Talkin Orioles Baseball. Appreciate all the love and support out there in Birdland. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode, gang. Like I said, we are going to be starting with recapping the last three series. The White Sox series, the Giants series, the Arizona Diamondbacks series. But don't worry, gang, we're going to kind of breeze through them as obviously there is a lot to cover in those games. And frankly, they're all in the past at this point. So we're just going to kind of breeze through it, starting with that White Sox series where the Orioles got a much needed, and like we predicted, 3-game sweep of those White Sox. Orioles kind of got lucky at times, gang, in that series. Look no further than in that game one, the first run that the Orioles got was on a weak 2-out fly ball to left where Austin Hayes pulled his hamstring, no longer on the Orioles, on the White Sox now, pulled his hamstring, was not able to make that play, and in fact still almost got Rutschman at the plate. Rutschman, though, was safe. I don't know if it's because the catcher dropped the ball or if Rutschman just beat the throw. Either way, both of those incidences show just how lucky the O's were during that series. Another main sticking point, gang, is that the Orioles got 3 saves in that series, but they could have blown all 3 saves. The first 2 were by Ryan Helsley, last one Rico Garcia, all of which got into a bit of a sticky situation in all 3 of those appearances. Also, you can look at how Kyle Bradish nearly let the game get completely out of hand in that one situation. He was struggling with command like he did a lot this season, and then walked the batter, frustratingly missed the ball, dropped the ball on the throwback. The runner ends up coming to score as Bradish throws it wildly to the backstop. Again, that's a moment that could have absolutely spiraled and gotten out of hand for Bradish and the O's. Bradish was able to get out of the inning right after that, and it's those little moments that show you why the Orioles swept. And it's a good thing. It wasn't all positive takeaways from that series, gang. Ultimately, the Orioles just showed that they were a better team than the White Sox, which is what we expect coming into this year. It's what we expected coming into this series, and certainly that was the case. It was just that the Orioles found ways to win the games, where the White Sox found ways to lose the games, or at the very least, found ways not to win those games, which is kind of the difference between good teams and bad teams, okay? Now, it's not a sign that all of these Orioles problems are solved. Certainly not. Like we said, there was a lot of things that the Orioles got lucky on, and there are a lot of moments that looked like it could get out of a hand, looked like it could cost us a game. And luckily, in that series, it didn't. The Orioles got back to 500 after sweeping those White Sox and headed back home to Camden Yards where they faced the San Francisco Giants, who started the season very poor, but actually were on a small heater coming into this series. And the O's wound up losing the first game of that series, but came back and won the last two to take the series from those Giants. The first game, really, I want to say the main point is kind of stupid, but it's that we lost our first game in our new City Connect jerseys. We've talked about how much we love those jerseys. The community went nuts over them. Birdland absolutely seems to relish and love these new Orioles City Connects, and how could you not? I can't wait to get my hands on not only a jersey, but at least one, if not multiple hats from this whole City Connect line. But the O's dropped the first game in those new City Connect jerseys. Kind of takes me back to when we got the black City Connect jerseys. And I don't remember the exact stat, but I'm pretty sure the Orioles lost the first few games at least while we're wearing those black City Connect jerseys. Hopefully, we can get back on the winning track in those new City Connect jerseys in that second appearance that we see them. Chris Bassett also in that series finally had a good game in his Orioles career. It wasn't great, but it was good. He got through 4 2/3 of an inning, so absolutely you'd like to see him get deeper. But he also was working against some bad luck and some bad defense in that game, gang. So Chris Bassett finally showing some signs of life for these Orioles, and hopefully better games are even to come. Also then, in the last game of that series, Cade Povich, who was celebrating his birthday, absolutely wowed in the game, gang. Cade Povich showing just how far he has come. He actually even had a perfect game through the first 4 innings and just had such a great start in that series. I'm very optimistic, as you all should be, about where Cade Povich is at. I think back to that first start in Toronto a couple years ago, and Vladdy Jr. welcoming him to the league with a monster shot. And it kind of seemed like Cade Povich might not have the stuff to succeed in this league, but now it seems like the work he's put in, the dedication, and the growth that he's had proves that he not only is able to pitch in this league, but potentially is a very good pitcher to come in Major League Baseball, gang. Very excited with what we're seeing from the Slim Reaper himself, Cade Povich. Orioles get to 8-7 after that Giants series, and it seems like they have some momentum building. It seems like the vibes are high, and they just so happen to also have been in first place in the AL East after that series. So this takes us to the last series the Orioles are just coming off, which is that Diamondback series. The Orioles wind up losing the series 2-1, and they should have won the series, gang. They should have found a way to win that series. They won the first game in an absolute slugfest, a legendary game as it will go in the books. They won 9-7. Orioles put up 8 of their 9 runs, in the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th inning. They came back down 7-1 in that game, and it was a whirlwind of a game. It included Jeremiah Jackson hitting 2 home runs, including a grand slam, and a Pete Alonso home run that was hit directly to Mr. Splash out in left center, who just so happened to be wearing a polar bear helmet. It was almost something out of a movie, gang. Also in that game, we saw Craig Albernez, the manager, take a nasty foul ball to the face hit by Jeremiah Jackson, And it could have been a lot worse, but certainly Alvarez took a beating from that foul ball. It's something we'll talk about later on. But that was really a big game for these O's. Dean Kramer got his first major league start of the season, and he wasn't bad, but he wasn't great either. Gave up 4 runs, but only 2 of them were earned. So we didn't see the terrible April Dean Kramer that we were kind of all scared of when he was announced to get that start. We actually saw a pretty competent Dean Kramer, which is lucky. It's just one of the signs of how deep our starting pitching depth is. Because again, you look at these last 3 series, you had Dean Kramer having a nice start. The series before we just talked, Cade Povich had a great start. And in that White Sox series in game 1, Brandon Young had come up and put in a great start. So we're seeing that starting pitching depth that we praised really coming to life and giving the Orioles some really good starts. Really, Albert Suarez was the problem as far as pitchers go. Gave up 3 earned runs in 2 innings pitched, but we still managed to find the win, get the win, and go into games 2 and 3 ready to take the series, especially considering how we have Trevor Rogers and Kyle Bradish starting for those games 2 and game 3 starts. Unfortunately, though, the O's aren't able to get it done in either. The O's got up in game 2 early, but one bad inning by Rogers in the 5th, giving up 4, especially 3 of which on a home run. It was actually his first 3-run home run he's given up in quite some time, gang. So I guess he was due, you could say. And really, he also looked phenomenal for the rest of the start. It was truly just one bad inning. And frankly, I think that's his only bad inning all season. So listen, these guys can't be perfect. Bad innings are going to happen. And Trevor Rogers did a great job of making sure it really wasn't even a bad start despite that 4-run inning. O's got 1 in the 8th and looked like another comeback might be in the works. Ultimately, though, it fell short, went to the rubber match in that game 3, which was a bit of a funky slugfest also. Orioles ended up falling 8-5, but in 10 innings. Kyle Bradish had a better start, but still was really lacking control, which has been his issue so far this season. Tyler Wells, another guy who's really just struggled the entire year, had another bad appearance, yet again in that game, giving up 3 in the 10th. Orioles wind up dropping back to 500 after the series, looking at 9-9 coming into this Guardian series that we're in right now. Again, the Orioles took 5 of 6 from the 2 bad teams that they were playing, but then dropped 2 of 3 to the good team. In a sense, you could look at that and go, hey, that's not bad. Like, you'll take that. Unfortunately, after taking game 1 of that D-back series and having Rogers and Bradish pitching in game 2 and 3, you really feel like you should have come away with 3 series wins in those last 3 series. So definitely disappointing, and more than disappointing, it feels like the Orioles kind of lost that momentum that they had just gained after sweeping the White Sox, after taking 2 of 3 from the Giants, and then winning that game 1. The Orioles had a lot of momentum working for them. And then, unfortunately, they could not capitalize. They kind of let the momentum slip away from them. And again, we fall to 9-9. And that takes us to our next topic, which again is the episode title, Yo-Yo O's. Because this season has been a yo-yo experience, gang. It's been a grind. It really has. The Orioles bouncing back and forth between 500, a game over, a game under, heck, even 3 games under, but then going right back to 500. Like, it's just this experience where every time you think they're going to take more steps forward, they take that step back. But as soon as they take those steps back, they take these steps forward. So, not the best start by any means, gang. It's been an absolute grind to start this season. And it's not just been this back and forth in the record, it's also been that way with the performance of this team. Some nights the offense is hot, some nights others the pitching is hot. Sometimes the offense is fluctuating even by the inning, where in the third and fourth, let's say they're really rolling, and then you have 3 straight innings where nobody gets on base even. I don't need you scoring in all 9 innings. I don't expect perfection. I'm just saying it's so up and down where one inning we have 7, 8 guys to the plate and we score 3 runs. The next inning we do almost the same thing, and then for 4 straight innings we get a single runner on in those 4 innings. So really fluctuating in offensive production. Again, not just by game to game, inning to inning at some times. Also, when you look at the lineup, sometimes the top of the lineup's hitting really well. Sometimes it's the bottom of the lineup that's hitting really well. So it's not even one of these things where you can go in and saying, hey, 1 through 5 or 1 through 4, we fully expect good offensive performances almost on a nightly basis. And hopefully the middle to bottom of the order can help us out. It's one of these things where going in, you're going, any one of these 9 guys could be the hero tonight. Which is a good thing, but also a little frustrating at the same time. Also, we're getting some great starts by those depth guys again. And those are the guys that you might not expect the great starts from. Brandon Young, Dean Kramer, even Cade Povich. When they come up and make that spot start, you're not necessarily going into it going, oh, he's going to give us a great one tonight. You're like, fingers crossed we get a good one. Meanwhile, the guys like Kyle Bradish and Chris Bassett, guys that you expect to be, quote, good starters, have been shaky. Now, certainly, Trevor Rogers has been great, but Shane Baz has been maybe even less than shaky, like just more bad than good. And hopefully, because he's got great stuff and a really good pedigree, he can work his way into at least getting back to above average, let's call him. However, again, just been a very yo-yo experience. Even these pitchers that are pitching well, like Shane Baz, or aren't pitching well like Shane Baz, are still inning to inning very much fluctuating. They'll run through 3 innings untouchable and then give up 4 in the next inning. They'll give up 3 in the second inning and then go 3 innings more where they're untouchable. So just seems like consistency on almost every level has not been there. Really anybody's guess as to what we're getting on a nightly basis right now, gang. And certainly being an Orioles fan right now is not for the faint of heart. Because they will test you, gang. They will test you. A lot of things, though, can give you pause and caution. Again, we can list a laundry list of things that are negatives or at least cautionary tales. However, I do believe there has been more good than bad to take away from this start. Again, the production from top to bottom in the lineup is really impressive, gang. You never know which one of these guys can kill you, and it's one of these lineups that makes pitchers feel uneasy. Because even when you get to the 7, 8, 9 hitters, you're looking at guys that maybe, sure, don't have the biggest brand names out there, but possibly are batting .350. So then you're looking, okay, this is not an easy lineup by any stretch of the imagination. Another thing is really the pitching depth that we've touched on a couple times. Our starting pitching depth has been phenomenal, but also our bullpen depth has been pretty impressive as well. Sure, not everybody was lights out. Tyler Wells is certainly struggling. Nick Roque did not have an impressive couple appearances for us when we brought him in. However, for the most part, gang, it's been pretty impressive the depth of this bullpen as well. And really just this team having a won't die mentality seems very present for this roster. And that's a great thing to have. When you start breaking down also each player, you see some really great production already from key players, whether it be Gunnar Henderson, Taylor Ward, Trevor Rogers. But you also see a lot of guys who really have yet to hit their stride. Pete Alonso, Kyle Bradish, Shane Baz, Chris Bassett, even Colton Cowser, if you believe in Cowser like I do, which is a topic we are going to touch on later because I think a lot of you don't hold Colton Cowser as high as I do. But still, a guy we've seen be successful at this level. And certainly is not playing up to their ability at the moment, and we expect more from as the season progresses. Then you got young players who are really ascending. You got the Baseo, the Beavers, the Jeremiah Jacksons. Heck, even Kobe Mayo, who has struggled this season, still is a player who's kind of ascending in his career. Started off really slow, and it seems like Kobe's getting a little more comfortable out there. And defensively, at the very least, he's looked a lot better than we expected him to be this season. So then you still have key players who are yet to return from injury. Jackson Holliday, Adley Rushman, Andrew Kittredge, Keegan Aiken, possibly even Jordan Westberg, are all guys who are injured right now, and we expect back, if not very soon, in the near future. And those are all big names. It's something we'll touch on later in our injury report. But the injuries we've sustained, for the most part, have either been kind of non-key players, a la Ryan Mountcastle, Geraldo, those type of guys, or it's just not been that severe of an injury. Obviously, Jordan Westberg kind of doesn't fall into that category. He's more a key player who possibly has a severe injury, or definitely has a severe injury, even if it's not season-ending. But when you look at Holiday, Rushman, Kittredge, Aiken, these are all key guys who didn't have significant injuries. And so it's these type of things where we're going to get them back sooner rather than later. And a lot of people feel we're very injured. We are, gang. We are very injured yet again. It's really not as bad as maybe it feels, simply again because the key players that are injured aren't seriously injured for the most part. This grind, however, could seriously very well forge this team into the team that can win the American League, can win the pennant, can win the World Series even. A team that never quits and can absolutely reach their potential. You have to be baptized by fire. And this grind, and assuming this grind probably carries out through at least most, if not all of the season, this is the type of thing that's going to make you a great team headed into those playoffs, gang. Alright, so that's the good, that's the bad. You know, that's kind of where we're faring right now. And now we're just going to glance real quick. I know it's early. I know it's too early. But we're going to glance real quick at the standings. Again, the Orioles sit 9-9 on the year right now. It's honestly not as bad as it seems. A normal year, I feel like you're sitting at 9-9 after 18. And again, you're not dead, but you're kind of down there. You're pushed down there. The Orioles really aren't. They're actually third in the AL East, which frankly probably sounds reasonable at 9-9, but only a game and a half back of the Tampa Bay leading Rays and 1 game back of the second place Yankees. They're tied for the final wildcard spot headed into today. And again, it's way too early to truly care about the standings, and it's an absolute cluster in the standings right now. All throughout baseball, really. But after a rocky start, we're still sitting in prime position to get where we want to go, gang. Which is the playoffs. Which is potentially winning the division. And absolutely making a push for the AL pennant. Alright, so now let's kind of go back to that moment when Craig Albernez, the manager, got a foul ball from Jeremiah Jackson directly in the cheek in the game the other night. Again, caught a foul ball to the face and had at least 7 fractures in his cheek and a broken jaw. Now, could have been much worse, gang. This was a ball that was hit in the mid-70s exit velocity. Not a ball that was hit 100 or mid 90s exit velocity. Because imagine the damage that would have been done had it been a much harder hit ball. I mean, we could be talking about a serious injury to manager Craig Albernez. Luckily, that wasn't the case. He doesn't even need surgery, doesn't need his jaw wired shut. And he actually did return briefly to the dugout to halfway congratulate, halfway kind of console, I guess, Jeremiah Jackson, who not only hit the foul ball, but also, like I said, hit the grand slam in that game, and would later even hit a second home run. But by that point, Albie was out of the stadium, headed to the hospital, and it was one of these things where, again, he wanted to tell Jeremiah he's fine, not to worry about him, not to hold anything against him, but also congratulate him and be part of the moment of that grand slam and the comeback. Jackson actually got the grand slam ball back, gifted it to Albernez with the message signed on it, quote, "Sorry, homie." Gotta love that, gang. And Craig Albernez was back to work the very next day. It's really just a tremendous sign of leadership from our manager. An example of the kind of grit that this team needs to have this season. And especially right now in the season. Once again demonstrating that, quote, he's down for the boys. Albie is one of the dudes. He's one of the guys. He's going to hold you accountable, but he's going to be a guy that not only do you want to play for, but you just love being around, talking, and feel like he is one of the guys. So, thank God that Craig Albernez didn't sustain any worse injuries, handled it like a man, had a heck of a raspberry on his cheek, but luckily our manager is safe and in relatively one piece. Good for Albie. Very scary situation in that game. Like I said, could have been so much worse. But ultimately, thankfully, he was okay. The Orioles end up coming back, fueled by the man who hit the foul ball, Jeremiah Jackson. Beautiful story, gang. Our next topic is going to be 3-2 Ward. Because Taylor Ward is a guy who loves himself a full count, a 3-2 count. Now, the numbers now are a little bit less impressive than maybe they were when I tried to do this topic after the White Sox series. So, stick with me. But the numbers are adjusted at the moment. So far, he's had, by my count, 18 full counts in 85 plate appearances. That's about 21% of his plate appearances. Very impressive stuff. And before the last two series, he was sitting at about 30%, gang. And he only had one 3-2 count in those 6 previous games. So, like I said, he has just been a man who loves going deep in counts, getting in full counts, because frankly, even when it's not a full count, you still often see him in a 2-1 count, 2-2 count, 3-1 count. He's getting deep into these counts. He's seeing a lot of pitches. And it's a great thing to see from one of our new Orioles this season. Frankly, he also could be nicknamed Taylor Two Bags Ward because he's leading the majors in doubles. 2 bags! 10 doubles so far on the season. Taylor Ward leading Major League Baseball in doubles. And these stats, if you looked right now coming into this series, again, aren't as impressive. But let's go back to 6 games ago, going into that Giants series, coming off of the White Sox series, and tell you where Taylor Ward's stats ranked before those 6 games. His batting average was .383, tied for 4th in baseball. An on-base of .464, 6th in baseball. Slugging, .574, tied 19th in baseball, and an OPS of 1.038 that was ranked 10th in all baseball in on-base plus slugging. Now again, he didn't have a great last 6 games, so those numbers have dipped a bit. Still though, he's having a phenomenal season. At this point, just 17 strikeouts on his year. He's led off for 11 games. In fact, he started off the season leading off the first 11 games, then got moved to the 2 hole until the last game of that Arizona series when they moved him back to the leadoff spot. I know Albernez was trying to feel out the lineup a little, also felt that Gunnar might have more success if he was back in the one hole, kind of surrounded by nothing but righties. At this point, though, it's impossible to complain if Taylor Ward is leading off. He's done just a phenomenal job. However, I personally feel he's probably best suited for that number 2 hole. Whether it's Gunnar leading off or eventually when Jackson comes back and gets up to speed, having Jackson Holiday in maybe that leadoff spot, Taylor Ward in the 2 hole, Gunnar in the 3, Alonso in the 4. That to me sounds phenomenal. Then you add Adley to the 5 hole, maybe Basello to the 6. That to me is just a very, very deep lineup. And to me might make the most sense, but we'll, one, have to see how Jackson Holiday plays when he comes back. And 2, again, just kind of feel out how these guys are hitting, how these guys are enjoying these positions, and hitting either in front or behind the other guys in the lineup. Frankly, no matter where Taylor Ward is hitting, it's great to have another guy who seems just more patient and relaxed and seeing pitches in this lineup. It's filled with a ton of aggressive hitters, whether it be Gunnar, whether it be Beavers, Basello. All of these guys seem to be aggressive hitters. Alonso. All of these guys are very aggressive. Cowser, for sure. However, Adley Rutschman, before Taylor Ward, seemed like he was the only patient hitter in the whole lineup and the only one kind of wanting to get deep into counts. Now Taylor Ward seems to be another guy who is more than comfortable getting himself into deeper counts and succeeding in those spots. So it's a great extra balance in this lineup to have yet another patient hitter. Now, since our last episode, there have been a flurry of Oriole injuries. We've kind of mentioned a couple on here earlier in the episode, but we're going to update you as the Orioles now have 13 players already on the injured list, coming off of last season when they were incredibly injured. Over 30 guys on the IL at one point or another last season. They have already piled up, gang. And like we said, it's not all bad. Certainly you never want to see guys miss time or get injured, but I think we've avoided, at the moment, knock on wood, any of the really terrible ones. Again, the idea that the star players, the key players that got hurt, they're not really that bad of injuries. And the ones that are bad injuries tend to be guys that we can probably live without for a while this season. Jackson Holiday's the first name we're going to touch on. Pulled off of the rehab assignment with wrist soreness. At first you see that and you get a little worried. That's very common with these guys recovering from the hamate bone injury. And Jackson only needed just a couple days off and he should be returning to action, if not tonight, in the day or two to come. And he is probably going to continue that rehab assignment down in the minors. But I wouldn't be surprised if that only lasts a couple games once he comes back from that soreness. And I feel like at this point his timing is probably there. Again, they want to bring him back. Just give him 1 or 2 more games of timing, I would expect. And then we'll see Jackson Holiday up, hopefully very soon, maybe even by the end of the week. Adley Rutschman is one of those new additions to the injury list, and that is a very concerning name. He battled injuries last year, and he started off the season so hot that it really stinks that he had to hit the IL. Looks like the Orioles, though, got lucky. He had rolled his ankle. Left ankle inflammation is the exact term that struck him on the IL. The MRI results were very encouraging, though, and he's not expected to miss much time, really, at all with that injury. There's a very good chance we see Adley Rutschman back before the end of this month. And again, it could be as soon as next week. Ryan Mountcastle, yet another new addition to this injury list. And this is one of those that is relatively serious. He fractured his left foot. It occurred when he was stumbling between first and second, ended up sliding awkwardly into the base. Again, broke a bone in his foot there and is going to be out a significant amount of time. O's already put him on the 60-day IL, meaning that they have no anticipation of him coming back anytime soon. Unfortunate for Mountcastle because I really felt, despite the lack of real playing time for him, he was the type of guy who could be one of the best pinch hitters in baseball. Still, we should see him get back to action at some point this season. I would think maybe around All-Star break, in which case he can certainly live up and become that prolific bat off the bench for us in those key situations. Yet another addition to this list. I know, it just keeps piling up, gang. Tyler O'Neill hit the IL for a concussion. Apparently, he fainted due to extreme dehydration. I don't even know how a professional athlete can get that. They monitor these guys so much. And he is so in shape that you would think that he would not be the type of guy that would happen to. Unfortunately, it did. And I will say, another positive takeaway from all of these injuries is in this injury where Tyler O'Neill's a very injury-prone kind of guy. So the fact that he hits this IL list and it's not a real injury really at all, it's just, hey, he fainted, was very dehydrated, maybe got concussed when he fainted, that makes sense. But that should be able to get recovered within a week, maybe two. So expect Tyler O'Neill to get back to action relatively soon. Zach Eflin, unfortunately, had Tommy John surgery after his second opinion and is done for the season. We kind of all expected that and saw this coming, but certainly Zach Eflin did not want to go quietly into that night, did not want to accept that that was the case. Second opinion came back with the same result, and his season is done. Now on to the two big relievers on the IL. You got Keegan Aiken, who's set to begin his rehab assignment this week. I would still expect him to be on that rehab assignment for at least a couple weeks, if not even longer, potentially a month, just simply because of my inside information. While the Orioles still have yet to announce how long he'll be out, my insider said about 6 weeks about a week ago. So, it's one of these things. We will see what happens. It's a positive sign, frankly, to me, that he's already on this rehab assignment. Because when I heard 6 weeks, I expected the rehab assignment in maybe 3 weeks. So to get it in 1 week, that's encouraging, gang. Maybe we can see Keegan Aiken back sooner rather than later, potentially by the end of the month. Andrew Kittredge, kind of the same thing, has already been on his rehab assignment, actually had to pause it real quick, but only for paternity leave. He should be back any day now and will pick back up his rehab. Should be back, again, if not by next week, by the end of this month. Silent J, Heston Kjerstad, still injured off of the injury he got in spring training. While there's no word on a return date, he's begun running and participating in baseball activities, which is a great sign of a step forward. And absolutely, at the moment, there's a potential opening on the roster for Heston Kjerstad if he was healthy. That's the real shame of it for Heston, because he was the type of guy that obviously wanted getting those everyday reps to try and get him into the best position to make a difference on this roster eventually. Now the spot's opened up and he is not healthy enough to take that spot, because I'm fairly certain that he would have been on this team at this point if he was healthy, gang. Yet another reliever on the IL, Dietrich Enns. We know that he had that foot infection a week or so ago, caused massive swelling. At this point, it seems to be recovering very well, and I would expect him back sooner rather than later, and the Orioles absolutely could use his left arm in that bullpen. The last guy we're going to touch on as far as injuries go is Jordan Westburg. Still no official word by the Orioles, but it's certainly an encouraging sign that he's been swinging a bat since April 1st and throwing since April 6th. Just encouraging signs that seem like Westburg might have gotten positive results from that injection and avoiding Tommy John, and potentially won't need Tommy John at all. And in which case, not only can we see Jordan Westburg rejoin the Orioles at some point this season, he might also be able to play the field when he does join this team. Just very encouraging, as Westburg is maybe the one key player who has experienced a significant injury for these Orioles. Now, you want to talk key players for the Orioles. It starts no farther than Gunnar Henderson. Certainly been our MVP so far this season, at least offensively. You could say Trevor Rogers, maybe. I still think Gunnar at the moment would take the MVP nod from the Orioles, as he's in the running for AL MVP at the moment. His AL MVP odds have significantly dropped since the start of the season. I think they're sitting around plus 600 when they started closer to plus 2,000. So that just shows you how good Gunnar Henderson has been. And he's really showing more emotion this season. He's kind of been somebody who's been mostly stoic on the field in his career. I think really trying to encapsulate everything and not, get too off center and off kilter with his emotions. But this season, he's really demonstrating it more. We saw it in the World Baseball Classic, and we also saw it in that White Sox series when he hit a huge home run in the one game, celebrating, rounding the bases with his tongue out. Certainly wasn't a celebration that was planned, was just spur in the moment. And I don't even think Gunnar was thinking of the possible MJ connection with the White Sox and the tongue out and all of that, but it really just fit and was perfect in that moment. Gunnar's really just saying that this emotion is, quote, just me. Just being himself, which is perfect and what you want him to be. You want him to be comfortable with not only being on the field, but being himself on the field. He understands, though, that there is a fine line and that too much emotion could be a negative, especially when that emotion is frustration. And we have seen some frustration from Gunnar, and that emotion is okay. But again, it's a fine line, and I think Gunnar's trying to learn how to walk that line when it comes to his emotions this season. The team seems to be all about it, though. The managing staff, everybody in the organization, really encouraging Gunnar to use his personality, be himself, and play with his emotion. Seems like it really fires up the boys and gets them excited, which is also a big benefit. It adds some life, it adds some energy and spark to the team when they see Gunnar with that emotion. I think it's really just a great sign by our franchise player and will only be a positive for this team moving forward, as long as maybe frustration doesn't boil over at any point. If we hit a point where not only we're in a slump, but he's in a slump, and that frustration is really boiling over to a crazy extent, then I think it might have some negative connotations. But as long as he manages it properly, I love the emotion that we're seeing from Gunnar Henderson this year. And I feel like it does add to the fuel and the fire inside this team. So I love it, gang. And certainly one player who could use some fuel in his soul, could maybe use some emotion on the field, could really use a spark, is what I'm trying to get at, is our next topic, which is Colton Cowser and the milkman not delivering. Listen, gang, I'm a huge Colton Cowser fan, so I'm not trying to beat a dead horse. I'm not trying to attack him over his poor start, but it has been a struggle so far yet again this season for Colton Cowser. I know some of you are looking at me going, yeah, why'd you expect any different? Well, because I think Cowser's a very talented player, offering a speed and power combination that is rare to find in a center fielder. Or an outfielder in general, frankly. Unfortunately, he has his swing and miss issues. That's something we're going to touch on. I really think, though, the main reason why Colton Cowser has struggled this season is that it seems like teams are adjusting their game plan against him. The stats that I'm about to read are all from after the White Sox series. So without the last 6 games, okay? But I'm sure the last 6 games would have just added to what I'm about to say. So, Colton Cowser this season is seeing changeups 26.3% of the time. That's the 4th highest in Major League Baseball. Only 16.9% of the time is he getting a 4-seam fastball. That ranks 329th in Major League Baseball, gang. 40% off-speed pitches, slugging under 100. 30.5% breaking balls he's yet to get a hit on. Fastball seeing 28.8% of the time. He is slugging 667 against that. However, that is certainly down from his career average. Really started off the season too improving the swing and miss problems. But since that first couple series, he's really regressed back towards not just the mean, but towards the bottom of the barrel when it comes to his swing and miss. And frankly, in his performance, he started off okay. He had a sac fly on opening day, then reached base in 5 straight games. After that, however, he didn't reach base for 3 straight games and was even getting pinch hit for. Since then, he did have a really good series against San Francisco, but a subpar, not terrible, but not great series against Arizona. I think he had 1 hit. I think he had 2 walks in those 3 games. So again, subpar against Arizona. So far, his season numbers at this point coming into the Cleveland series is batting .216 with a .318 on base, .243 slugging, and an OPS of .561. Only 1 extra base hit. It was a double. No home runs. 6 walks. 11 strikeouts. Yeah, the 11 strikeouts actually don't sound that bad. But overall, it's been a lot of weak contact and a lot of poor performances by my guy, Colton Cowser, the milkman. And I truly wonder how long the leash is for Cowser. Because Taveras has been pretty solid. Coming into tonight, he was batting around .350. Blaze Alexander has been pretty electric for this team for the most part and has taken reps in center field. Dylan Beaver's taken reps in center field. So there's a handful of other options now that can play center, gang. And I wonder if maybe when Jackson Holliday gets back, if the Orioles look to maybe platoon Cowser more with either Blaze Alexander, maybe even Taveras. Heck, he might already be in a platoon with Taveras. So it's one of these situations I'm wondering, what is the future for Colton Cowser? Even the near future for Colton Cowser? Are the Orioles willing to move him back to the minors to allow him to work these things out? I'm not sure. I don't have the answer, gang. I do know that historically Colton Cowser has been a pretty streaky player. Hot, cold, hot, cold. When he's hot, he's as hot as they come. And when he's cold, he's usually as cold as they come. In which case, if I'm the Orioles, I kind of feel it out a little more. I at least wait to see if we can get him in one of those massive heaters. And then off of that, who knows? Maybe he finds a nice middle ground with some confidence. Later in the year, though, if Cowser's still struggling, heck, maybe the Orioles moved him to the minors. I'm wondering if Enrique Bradfield Jr. winds up getting the call up for that Cowser spot. You know, the type of player that, listen, maybe he's just speed and defense, but if Cowser's not hitting when he's in there, I might as well take the guy who's a better fielder and a better runner, Enrique Bradfield Jr. And at the very least, we'll lay down some bunts and maybe beat them out. I don't know. I don't know, gang. I don't have the answers. Again, I want the answer to be Colton Cowser has a really good season and is able to get back on track and perform really well. Because I swear, Colton Cowser, if he stayed healthy last season, would have hit over 30 home runs. I think he showed that. Unfortunately, he didn't stay healthy. And this season, he started off so slow, I don't know if he's going to have the playing time to even, not just make a run, even have the possibility of a guy who could potentially make a run. I don't know, gang, but the milkman is not delivering so far, and it's very disappointing to me. I promise you, when he does, you will see me in my cow costume that I have in my closet, and I will be celebrating, gang. Hopefully that day comes sooner rather than later. The next guy who has been extremely impressive is Himamiah Jackson. Action Jackson. We got another one, gang. And we got 2. Action Jacksons is the name of this segment. Jeremiah Jackson, absolutely phenomenal for us this season. Batting average of .340, slugging .604, and an OPS of .49. He has 4 home runs, 2 doubles, 14 RBIs, just 53 plate appearances. And he's played in 16 of the 18 games for these O's headed into tonight. He's really shown his potential and energy that we saw last season that he had. And he looks to have taken it to another level, gang. It's a beautiful, beautiful sight. This year he is wowing at the opportunity that he has on hand. And between the Jackson Holiday injury and a couple of these other injuries, gang, Westberg, a couple other guys, Action Jackson has really gotten an opportunity, and he's running with it. He is solidifying his spot on the roster. And more than that, if he keeps playing this way, he's going to be continuously given opportunities. He's yet another guy who has now become a big part of this young Orioles core. There's no other way to look at it. There's no other way to say it. But Jeremiah Jackson is 100% a part of this young Orioles core moving forward. He seems to be a guy, too, that really rises to the occasion. He's very clutch, which is one of the things I love about him. And his defense has actually looked fairly impressive this season, making some very nice plays, especially out on second base. So Jeremiah Jackson, I'm sure that the Orioles have a plan for him once Jackson Holiday returns and takes over maybe the everyday second base role. Jeremiah Jackson's versatility and utility is going to be very useful for these Orioles in finding ways to make sure he stays on the field. Whether it's second, whether it's third, whether it's a corner outfield spot. One way or another, Jeremiah Jackson will be getting these at-bats as long as he keeps playing this way. Alright, gang, so let's break down this Guardian series to get us out of here. It's actually already going on. I don't know if you can see the reflection behind me, maybe. However, the Orioles have already started Game 1 in Cleveland against these Guardians. Game 1 was Shane Baz versus Parker Messick. And Messick came into this game with a .51 ERA in 3 starts. Yes, .51. And if you thought that was impressive, he did that against the Dodgers, the Cubs, and the Braves, gang. So this was never going to be a game that was going to be easy for these Orioles. I'll just spoil it for you. It's 4-0 Guardians headed into the bottom of the 7th. The Orioles have done next to nothing, gang. Next to nothing today. And frankly, I have a feeling, because again, I've been doing this episode, I haven't been watching the closest. There's a chance maybe we're getting no hit or he's throwing a perfect game on us right now. Again, it just went to commercial. I couldn't see it exactly. But I have the sneaky suspicion that we might be getting no hit and potentially a perfect game thrown against us going into the 8th. Hopefully that's not the case. But I can't remember seeing a base runner. I can't remember seeing a guy on base yet this game. And again, I've been doing this. I've been looking at you. I've been talking to you. So I haven't been paying full attention. However, hasn't been a good start to this series, gang. Game 2 is going to be Chris Bassett versus Tanner Bibby. Bibby has a much different ERA than Messick. Bibby's ERA is 6.38, and he hasn't made it through the 5th inning yet this season. On his career, he's 2-1 against the Orioles. Chris Bassett, like I said, coming off his best Orioles start to date, but still has yet to put in a very good start. I could see Chris Bassett really clicking in this Game 2 for the Orioles, so expect to see that. Game 3, Dean Kramer versus Gavin Williams. Dean Kramer, again, we know his problems in April, but he did have an okay start for us last go-around. Hopefully we get that Dean Kramer and not the Dean Kramer of April's pasts. Meanwhile, Gavin Williams' ERA of 2.38 is 0-2 in his career against the O's. Game 4 is going to be our ace Trevor Rogers taking the bump against Joey Cantillo. Cantillo has an ERA of 2.61 this season. He has 4 career appearances against the Orioles. 3 of them were in relief last season. 2 years ago, he did have 1 start. He got the loss in that game. And frankly, the Orioles have hit him around a decent amount in his 4 games against the O's, gang. So we'll see. I really think we probably split this series, gang. At this point, I'm hoping we split this series. I'm going to give them this game already. It's 4-0. I still have hope we can come back, but I'm not counting on it, gang. Especially, yes, we are absolutely getting no hit. It's not a perfect game, though, because apparently we have one left on base. But we are getting no hit through 7 innings currently, so I'm not calling a comeback. But hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully by the time you're watching this, the Orioles have won 5-4 tonight. I doubt that's going to be the case. I really, though, think that Game 2, Bassett versus Bibby, really favors us. And the Game 4, of course, our ace, Rogers, going back out there and hopefully getting us the win. Hopefully, at the very least, that will be our second win in this 4-game set. Afterwards, we go to Kansas City, and this was a tough road stretch just coming into it. Not only are Cleveland and Kansas City pretty good teams and pesky teams, but I just have the sneaky suspicion, and I could be wrong, I didn't look at the numbers, but I think historically the O's are pretty bad in Cleveland and probably even worse in Kansas City. So we'll see, gang. Hopefully we can survive, but I appreciate you sticking with us. Like I said, we had technical difficulties last week, but we're back in action, gang. So now expect to see this face Talkin Orioles baseball every single day. Make sure you give us a like, subscribe, follow, whatever it may be on the platform. Make sure you give us that love, gang, and I appreciate you sticking with us. This was another episode of the Talkin Orioles baseball podcast. Let's go, O's.